Hi, it's Colin Cowherd. Do you want the best content on the internet? Go watch cats playing on tiny pianos. It's really good. But if you want arguably the second best content, subscribe. The Volume has signed Matt Mosley. I am announcing it right now to a contract, and I am so happy that you're going to be part of the Volume. And we'll talk about this more and more. Mm-hmm. But, you know, the high regard I hold you in. And for the record, I only have cocktails with friends, and I poured a cold one for you, my friend. So delicious.
Can you tell me exactly what that is?
Grey Goose rocks with a touch of grapefruit. Oh, Mosley, it's so good. Matt, it's so good.
Man.
So, listen, I know Daniel Jones got hurt, but, you know, my wife was in the culinary business, Matt, for a long time. Her son's a chef. He's a terrific kid, great chef. And my wife's dad owned a lot of restaurants. And my wife's a brilliant cook. And she always said, you eat with your eyes first. That's why there's no blue food. You eat with your eyes. The plate has to look the part. And I always trust my eyes first. My eyes are telling me this is the best Cowboy team in 10 years. I think they're fast. I had a real problem, Matt, before the season. I said they were paying too many good players great money. But by hitting on 2 draft picks, Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, and by moving off Jason Smith, the books make more sense to me now. They're paying some O-linemen, Zeke, Dak, a top receiver, and a pass rusher. That's what you should pay in the NFL. And as I watched them play the Giants, even though Daniel Jones got hurt, I felt they were controlling the football game. I don't think it was nearly as close as the score indicated. And I don't think I'm being over the top here. They look the part. And I don't know who I trust in the NFC. I don't trust the Packers and the Buccaneers right now. I really don't.
Yeah, it's sort of exciting to think about. And you can imagine what this place is like when the Cowboys are really good. And there's fake good. And you could even hear it in Aikman's voice. Jimmy, right after the game, was trying to say, and he confused the whole set. He was trying to say that I think he was hinting that they might be good as the 90s Cowboys. I don't think he totally went that far, but I think he was leaning that way. And by the way, to be a part of Volume, we started talking about this like a year and a half ago. And
yes,
I was one of the first guys you talked to. And then you went and hired like 28 other people. And then you and now you've brought me on. So I'm very excited about it, by the way. But to your point, there is something that seems way more believable about this team. And again, we can poke holes in anything and go, well, wait, Carolina, they just got beat again, or this team or the NFC East, they're going to beat up on some bad teams. And that is true. But I think you're right. Sometimes you have to trust your eyes. And there are some things about this team that sort of feel dominant. And the old Cowboys, what would happen is something bad would happen, an interception, a fumbled snap when you're deep in an opponent's territory, and the rest of the game could be colored by those plays. And now that doesn't seem to be the case. And they seem to be to overcome adversity. And one of the things that was made clear on that broadcast, and you and I think we're the first, let's claim that we were the first to sort of bring this up. They've been missing a lot of players. And
yes.
That's the biggest difference in this team. They'll start to get some of those players back, but this thing went fine when they were 3 or 4 players down. And in the past, it's like, oh my gosh, there's no way they can function without this guy and this players and this starter at right tackle. I mean, think about that. Years ago, they would lose Tyron Smith, for instance.
Yes.
And they might go out and give up 7 sacks to one guy. Like I think they got the guy from the Falcons a new contract several years ago based on one game. So we're seeing this. So, Colin, I mean, I agree with you. I've seen – now, I think it's too early to compare them to like the 90s Cowboys and all that business. We'll leave that to the hype artists. But I think you can seriously say this team has a shot.
Yeah, I mean, think about this. Their only loss is Tampa, and I think I would submit to you they outplayed Tampa. They have not had a bad game. Green Bay has. Kansas City has. Buffalo had a stinker early against Pittsburgh. The teams I like have all had a bad game. There's only a couple that haven't. I think the Chargers have mostly been the same team every week. They lost to Dallas, but they've been the same team every week. And the Cowboys. And the Cowboys beat that Chargers team. And it's interesting because they beat Cleveland now. And Cleveland's a top 5-6 roster. So let's go back to the Charger game for a second because we know once Mike Glennon came in, the Cowboys are going to win this game at home. Let's go back to that Charger game. And we often do this, Matt, where the season goes on and then we go back and go, that week 5 game or that week 6 game, that team is way better than we thought. Go back to the Chargers game. I felt from the very beginning, Dallas was the better team. I thought they were the only team. Do you know Justin Herbert's won 8 of 9 games? The Cowboys are the only team that have beaten him. They gave him some trouble. You go back and look at that Chargers game and how well they're playing. They went to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs. So take the Giants game out of it. That game to me is like, okay, they outplayed the Super Bowl champs on the road and they beat the Chargers on the road. This is a real football. I mean, go back to that game. I thought they were clearly better than a very good Charger team.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting? I wish you would stop rubbing it in with those long pours. Look like a heavy pour you have there. But you and I kind of do the same thing. We go back to certain games in the NFL history, and that Tampa game might be something we end up going back to. And it almost had the one I always go back to is at the end of that regular season where the Patriots looked like they were going to have the perfect season and the Giants gave them an unbelievable game, even though the Giants didn't have to play that thing straight up. And it gave the Giants all this confidence and everything. And the Buccaneers, with the prestige and everything that Tom brings to that team, the Cowboys should have won that game. They had the turnover margin, and now I think that game, it's weird to say the first game of the season, but that game, in a sense, a loss has helped catapult them, and I think it gave them tremendous confidence. And I think, as Troy talked about, and I think he recognizes this team, in the past, we wonder who do they feed off of? And there's absolutely no doubt that everything comes from this quarterback. And he's unflappable, and even when he makes mistakes, but now they have a killer on the other side of the ball. And that's really something that we're trained to say in the NFL, oh, they have this great Aaron Donald, this great pass rushers, defense. So we're trained to say the greatest players are these pass rushers. It's rare that we say the greatest player on a team or on a defense is the cornerback, because there just aren't that many great ones in the league. And it appears the Cowboys have one. Now you can get on to Garrett or the quarterbacks for the Giants and go, what in the world are you doing throwing at that guy? But the ease, I mean, think about that. Whether it be Revis, whoever we want to compare and go, Richard Sherman, whoever. And Sherman came out today and said he's the defensive player of the year. Diggs right now is the defensive player of the year.
Yeah, but I agree.
Colin, you always sort of trust your eyes and talk about like how athletes look or the speed. And when you watch Diggs play the ball, those are the things you're talking about. There's there's something that's happening that just not many guys have, and he has it.
Yeah, no, I think listen, so much of this league, I mean, it was a bizarre Sunday. 11, 12 PATs missed. Head-scratching decision by Kevin Stefanski on a 3rd and 10 to run it and give the ball back to Justin Herbert. There was some really weird coaching. There was some really bad special teams play. And it's really popular and easy. I say this about Twitter. It's easy to join the avalanche because nobody wants to get buried by it. It is easy to bury Mike McCarthy as a talk show host on Twitter. You'll get no pushback. But let's be honest about this. Andy Dalton was almost 500 last year with McCarthy. This team is playing really spirited, good football. Yes, the clock management is weird. Andy Reid's clock management before Mahomes was odd. That's something apparently, that's something coaches, maybe you need a mathematician somewhere on the sideline. But I still contend it's mostly if you have a great quarterback, we don't talk about your clock management. Nobody talks about Andy Reid's clock management anymore. He just goes for it, instead of, marginalizing a situation. But we can talk about McCarthy, but Dan Quinn's a very good hire. He has a say in personnel. The last couple of drafts have been pretty good. Where do you think, in Dallas, when you do all your work in Dallas, he's a bit of a punchline nationally, but Dallas hasn't had a stinker in a month and a half. There's something there with him.
Yeah, I think there's something that's connecting with the players. Garrett's voice had obviously gone stale with not only the fans, the players, and everyone. I think they like him. He's not a good speech maker. You saw it on Hard Knocks, but I think I think one thing he did that Garrett had a hard time. Garrett was embarrassed years ago when the play calling was taken away from him. The one thing nice I can really say about McCarthy is he comes in here. You would think he was being hired for his play calling, and they say, no, we got a boy wonder here. We want it, Kellen Moore. You should let this guy. He's really good. And you know what? The guy said, yeah, that's cool. I'll do it. I thought it was weird that they would bring this guy in, and he's known as a play caller, and yet he seems comfortable with it. And like Wade Phillips, for instance, was not comfortable with Jason Garrett because he always knew he was the heir apparent.
Right.
This guy they all have egos. This guy has thicker skin than most. But what you said about Quinn, they just gained so much more credibility on defense. He gives them that. They're offering a lifeline to him. His career had hit this dead end, and all of a sudden, think about what's going to happen at the end of the season if they keep rolling. Somebody's going to give him another shot. Somebody's going to give Kellen another shot. Now, again, that's going to be tough on the Cowboys because they're going to lose some really good coaches. But that's how good a job they're doing right now. They're headed toward everybody coveting their head coaches. And last year, Dan Quinn had become a laughingstock with the Falcons. All those late game kind of things.
Right.
And yet he's regained this much credibility. There's no better place in the world to lose credibility or gain credibility than the Dallas Cowboys. There's no in between. There's no, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. You're either great or you're out. And again, that's one of the cool things about covering this team.
Yeah. It's funny. I for years, I think I was viewed as sort of a Cowboy hater. Skip Bayless, obviously very pro-Cowboy. But my takeaway was I would say the same thing every year. I think they'll be pretty good because they were always pretty good. But, I think we do have to give Dallas credit in a couple of things. They found Dak in the fourth round. They built the best offensive line in the last 15 years in the league. That Dallas offensive line is going to have 2 to 3 Hall of Famers. They have a bevy of wide receivers. Cedric Wilson's making plays in a time now that wide receivers are the running backs of the 70s, 80s, 90s. They have found an absolute lockdown corner. And, I've said this before. I tend to be a pivoter. Like I don't own any opinion. I'll move off anything. Is the Cowboys sometimes are too insular. You know this. I love Charlotte Jones. I think Steven's really capable. Sometimes they need an outside voice. You start looking around at some of their decisions in the last 2 or 3 years with personnel. A lot of them are panning out. We say what you want. A lot. Dak maybe make a little bit too much money. Zeke's a little overpaid, but Tony Pollard's free, essentially. Is when you cover them like you do in the market, do you sense a respect for the football operations part? We know the branding part where Charlotte's great, right? But if I took 20 people like you in the market, how are they viewed operationally, the football side today?
The marketing side, as you say, most people probably see them as geniuses. I'm a little hurt. I'm hurt that you didn't mention Jerry Jr. You're not giving him his due. He's in there too. Let's get him mentioned. The football side, yeah, I think we're so trained to doubt them.
Yes.
And to scrutinize everything they do, that it's hard to sort of accept, oh my gosh, they're getting a lot of this right.
Yes.
Now, you have to remember that a lot of this stuff looked kind of weird for a while. The Gregory went forever without playing. So for the longest time, that looked like a poor decision. Now it's like a great decision. The guy's really, really good.
Yeah,
so
and
these
playing
things
well.
change. Jalen Smith, weird decision, good decision, bad decision. It's like all over the map. Now, but I wanted to give them credit for something. On the football side, what did they do the other day? And maybe this is Quinn. I don't know who to give. Maybe it's McCarthy. We can decide who we want to divvy this up to. But they kind of thought, you know what? We kind of like this Jabril Cox. We kind of like Keanu Neal, Curse, all these guys that can get in the box. Jalen's okay. He's a good leader. The teammates love him. But because of some financial reasons, because he wouldn't sign some stuff, they just move him on out.
Yeah.
That's hard for Jerry to do, because Jerry bet on this guy. We can come up with some crazy surgery, and Dan Cooper, we love our medical staff, and we'll get this thing right. And in a sense, he wants to believe this was an incredible, and in some ways it is an incredible story. But somebody said, Jerry, we need to get this guy on out of here. And then we didn't make a big deal out of it for a decent reason today, because Daniel Jones got hurt on the play, and it was a scary, weird injury. But who hit him? Who hit him at the line? That was Jabril Cox. That's a fourth-round pick up there. And again, it wasn't a dirty play, because on either player, Daniel Jones lowered his head and was trying to bowl his way into the end zone.
Right.
And that linebacker took him down, and he did what he was supposed to do. And that was a really sad, weird-looking injury. But the reason that guy was on the field making a big play at the goal line was because Jalen Smith's gone. And they're going to eat the rest of his whatever. I mean, he'll get that $9 million or whatever guaranteed, and he's double dipping with the Packers. And in the past, Jerry would have hated that. He may still hate it, but he did it. So I guess what I'm saying is, give him credit. The part I give him credit for is listening to what we would call the football people, and Quinn or McCarthy or whoever, and Will McClay's pretty good personnel man. So they are insular in a lot of ways, but they also listen. They're also listening. Now, do they get too attached to people?
Yeah.
I mean, they let Zeke stare them down, and it cost them. They put enormous money in the running back position, but it doesn't matter right now, does it? Because he looks great, and Pollard looks great, and I mean, they'll deal with that down the road.
All right, the game itself. I know once Daniel Jones is hurt, it's a whole different ballgame. I thought Dallas controlled the first half. This happens in football all the time, where you can clearly see a team is better than another team, but they fumble in the red zone. The game doesn't quite work the way it should. I didn't have a lot of doubts early. I felt Dallas had the juice today. Did you?
Yeah. I think when it's the Giants, we're trained for extremely weird things to happen in this division. So the old wounded tiger theory, where people that have covered the Cowboys a long time maybe give those division rivals a little more than most people would.
Yeah.
And the Giants have been known to do some weird things. They just came off a victory over the Saints and hang around a little bit. Cowboys tried to help them a little bit, but again, it's kind of like I said, this team's sort of unflappable, and they have some bad stuff happen. And then what do they end up winning? 44-20. By the end of the game, it's just a laugher, and everybody's got pick sixes all around.
Right.
This is what they did is something they haven't done in the past. What they did is get a nice chunk of this schedule and go, okay, we survived those first two games. Got a nice win over the Chargers, 1-1, feeling pretty good. Maybe it should be 2-0, but 1-1. And then you get this nice little, Carolina's okay. Panthers are okay. Well, they just took care of everybody and have kind of rolled. And so this doesn't feel as fraudulent as some Cowboy runs that I've covered, where everybody goes crazy. Right. It seems to have more substance to it, and that's because there are more people around, like Quinn and Kellen. And again, let's give McCarthy some credit. And one thing that you and I both talked about a few weeks ago, we're not hearing about goofy special team stuff. Part of that, they're not having to punt a lot, but he's kind of listened to the critics, I think. And the John Fossil show has settled down. And I really think they heard your theory about how those, about all the, I like that. I like that one you threw out there about those guys are always trying to kind of prove themselves and do tricks and all that kind of stuff. And the USC guy you brought up and
John
all that
Baxter
kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think I kind of like that. I made fun of you for it, but I kind of enjoyed talking, and they do have kind of a court jester as their special teams coach here. And I think McCarthy may have said, hey, why don't we just do some normal stuff?
Right.
And then
of course
we might
listened.
be okay.
Matt, they listened. People do. That's the way it works. This is Matt Mosley's first paid appearance. I was very happy with it. And this is all it takes. You're done. This is it. It's over. That's it.
Yeah. I guess nobody mentioned to me the paid part. Is that
By the way, go get yourself a cocktail, brother.